Welcome! Today Richard learns the tutorial for Resident Evil the board game, a 1 to 4 player game by Sherwin Matthews, published by Steamforged Games. And note that this is a how to play for the tutorial scenario of Resident Evil. So although I will be going over differences between the tutorial scenario and regular gameplay, I will not be going over anything that is not required for the tutorial scenario. Resident Evil the board game is a cooperative game of survival horror for 1 to 4 players set in the desolate Spencer Mansion and the surrounding wilderness. In order to survive this mysterious building, full of strange puzzles and relentless undead adversaries, players must work together. As a team, they must search for a way to enter the sinister laboratory beneath the mansion and put an end to this nightmare. The goal of the game is to complete each objective for each scenario, until the objective for the final scenario has been completed. To set up, let's first grab tiles according to the tutorial setup on page 15 in the rulebook. Let's start by taking a tile that is 3 squares by 3 squares. We can see here that we have 4 tiles that we can choose from and that they are double-sided. When making your decision about which tile to choose, the artwork does not matter. So go ahead and choose whichever tile you wish. And as for the features on the tile, we can see it has 2 spawn points and a red border around it. This red border is the wall of the tile. Characters cannot pass through the red border. So for now, let's set this in our play area. When choosing a tile that is 3 by 2, once again, it does not matter which of the tiles you choose. And place that as indicated by the instructions. Now, when it comes to choosing a tile that is 2 squares by 2 squares, we can see there is a difference in the walls of these tiles. Whereas this tile has no walls going into the tile, these 3 do. So in this case, it does matter that you take the tile that has no walls inside the tile itself. The same observation is required when choosing this piece. We can see that these 2 pieces do not have any walls coming inside the tile, whereas this one and this one do in different orientations. For our tutorial scenario, choose one that has no walls going inside the tile. And we can see once our tiles have been set up, our play area looks similar to this. You may have chosen slightly different artwork, but all the shapes are the same. Next, let's place doors. The game comes with 20 doorway tokens and 8 archway tokens. For our scenario setup, we will be using only door tokens. When placing a doorway, be sure to place it in the closed position, and place a door token with its closed side up in each position marked with a blue rectangle. Next, let's set up the items. The game comes with 16 item tokens. For our tutorial, we will need 3 A-item tokens. Place those on the indicated locations. Normally, all the basic A-item cards are shuffled together in a single stack, adding in the numbered ones only when instructed to do so. For our tutorial, however, we will remove specifically 2 green herb and 2 handgun bullets. Next, shuffle those 4 cards together and place that in a stack by the play area. Now let's place the exit token. So take and place. Next, let's form the tension deck. To start, be sure to not add in any of the cards that have a special number at the bottom right. Only add these in when instructed to through the campaign. So for this tutorial, place them back in the box. The remaining basic tension cards will form the normal tension deck. However, for our tutorial tension deck, remove 15 all clear cards, as well as the cornered, fevered assault, and vigor mortis cards. Then shuffle those cards together and place that next to the play area. Now let's place the zombies. The game comes with 15 zombies in 3 different poses. For our tutorial, choose any 6 of those zombies and place them on the indicated locations on the tutorial. And note that this one space contains 2 zombies. Next, locate the zombie reference card. If we look at the top of the card, we can see that it's threat level is at 1, which is the lowest in the game. This means that if, for example, the zombie and Cerberus were on the board at the same time and able to react, the Cerberus would react first as its threat level is higher. Beside that is the movement value. We can see a zombie would move 1 square when it reacts. As well, it has 1 hit point. Next is how the zombie attacks. So we can see it must be 0 squares away from the enemy, which is to say it must be on the same square as the hero. And if the attack is successful, it will damage by 1. And there will be times when an enemy will do a special attack instead of its default attack. And that is when this symbol matches this symbol on a tension card. So the zombie can be 1 away from a hero, and it will do 1 damage and then go into the same square as the hero after resolving the attack. Finally, an enemy's special rules are listed here. And note that there is more than one symbol in the tension deck. So this symbol would affect the Cerberus this way, and this symbol would affect the Cerberus this way. Place enemy reference cards somewhere by the board for players to easily reference. Now let's choose our characters. When it comes to our heroes, we have our 4 main characters and 4 support characters. For gameplay, we will choose one of the 4 main characters. So for the tutorial, place the characters marked Reserve Only back in the box. They are not used for the tutorial. Each hero has its own profile card, mini, and individual traits making them unique. Each player chooses which character they will play as. Let's set up a 3-player game. To continue individual setup, each character receives one of each item on the left side of their character card. Resident Evil the board game comes with 4 different types of item cards: S, A, B, and C. When it comes to item types, S does not refer to S tier, but rather starting cards. There are 6 types of item cards: weapons, which allow you to attack; ammunition, which allows you to reload; recovery, which allows you to heal; defense, used when you're attacked; scenario specific, meaning it gets discarded at the end of a scenario; and special items, important objects which are crucial to progressing through the campaign. Outside of the tutorial, you would normally place those 3 items by your character profile card, but I will get to that in a moment. And each gun in the game comes with its own dial. To set up a weapon dial, match the type of weapon it is with the ammunition limit. We can see that a handgun has 15 bullets, and we can see our handgun ammo dial is now built. When using a weapon for the first time, be sure its ammunition dial is set to its maximum capacity. When looking at the top of the card, we can see that he will roll 1 blue die to see if he evades an attack. He can hold 6 items. He has 1, 2, 3 currently, and he can have 2 kerosene tokens, which is given at the start of the game. Each character also has individual special rules. Each character is also given a health track and a health track marker, which is placed in the fine position. But now that we've learned how to set up for a proper game for this tutorial scenario, each character will go through the tutorial with only 2 items, a knife and a handgun. Only a knife and a handgun and nothing more. Now let's place our figures. We can see on the scenario setup that there are 2 starting positions. And it doesn't matter where you place your figures as long as one of them is in each spot. Decide amongst yourselves who will go first, then play will continue clockwise from there. A player's turn consists of an action phase, reaction phase, and tension phase. First, let's start learning the action phase. During the action phase, a character can perform up to 4 actions. This includes performing the same action again if they choose. The actions include move, open or close a door, search, trade, use item, and attack. When doing a move action, a character can move 1 square, including diagonally. So in this example, Jill has used 2 of the 4 action points, both for movement. And although characters can use 1 action point to move diagonally, they cannot cross corners. So Barry cannot move diagonally to that square. He must go around, which of course uses 2 action points instead of 1. And the only way a character can move between tiles is through an open doorway or an archway. The next type of action a character can make is to open or close a door. During the campaign, you will come across doors that are locked, and you will need to find specific objectives in order to unlock those doors. But we can see for our tutorial, we don't have to worry about locked doors. Search means to remove the item token in the square that you are standing in and draw the top card of that lettered deck. Then place it with your other items. However, if you are already at maximum capacity, for example, Barry can only carry 6 items, then you would be unable to do the search action in the first place. However, it is possible to discard items from your inventory. Simply choose an item you are certain you wish to discard and discard it. This does not take up an action point. When trading between characters, those characters must be in the same or adjacent squares. But characters are free to trade as many items as they wish. And a special note about herbs, if a character gains more than 1 herb, they can place it individually or on the same item space. However, once combined, they cannot then be uncombined. The next action is use item. Simply discard the item and gain the effect. And finally, a character is able to use their weapon to attack. For our tutorial weapons, we have a knife and a handgun. And we can see that for both of them, we determine how successful we are by rolling 1 blue die. Blue dice are used for both evade and attack. And we can see that the attack is on 3 of the 6 sides, and evade is on the other 3 of the 6 sides. We can see that for both the knife and handgun, if we roll this symbol, it will push the enemy. Push allows the target to be pushed in an adjacent square as long as it does not cross a wall or corner. Now let's say we decided to shoot our handgun, lowering the ammunition count by 1, and this symbol is what we rolled. We can see that by the symbol, it damaged the enemy, and the number inside is by the amount. We can see that a zombie's health is worth 1 point. So the zombie is defeated and is removed from the tile. And in a normal game, if this enemy is killed, replace it with a corpse, so it would be placed on the tile. However, for the tutorial, do not worry about the tough hide rule. When you defeat a zombie, it is removed from the board completely. And this symbol is not on the blue dice, that's why it does nothing. If you were to roll an evade, your attack is entirely unsuccessful. Next on the knife, we can see that it has a limited range. What this means is the enemy must be no more than 1 square away in order to be used. Otherwise, you cannot use that weapon. As for the handgun, we can see that it has this symbol here, which means rapid fire. Which means if you wish, you may add another die to use another bullet in rapid succession, or even a third die if you so choose. So if you're using 3 bullets at once, lower the ammunition count by 3, take the 3 blue dice, roll them, and apply the results. And results are cumulative, so if you had 2 hits, you could apply that to 1 target. Unfortunately, you can only apply that to 1 target. So in this example, had I targeted this zombie, only this zombie would be attacked. When it comes to range other than knives, an enemy will always be in range if there is line of sight. So in this example, an archway is a section that is always open, so line of sight is clear. So in this example, firing a gun would be successful. In this example, Chris does not have line of sight. This is determined by measuring from the center of the character square to the center of the enemy square. And we can see in this case it does not quite go around the wall, so there is no line of sight in this case. A closed door also blocks line of sight. If a character wished to move, open a door, search, or trade with another character, and an enemy is in the same square as that character, before that action is resolved, the enemy with the highest threat level performs a basic attack. An enemy's basic attack is listed at the top of their reference sheet, and the amount of dice a character will roll to see if they evade is listed at the top of their sheet. So they would take 2 blue dice in this case, roll them, and see if they evade. The success of evading any kind of attack depends on the base of the enemy. We can see in this example that a zombie has a small base. So up to 4 zombies or items or any other thing can fit in a single square. To successfully avoid an attack from a small base enemy, a small, medium, or large evade must be rolled. For 2 small base or a single medium base, a medium or large must be rolled on one of the dice. Now let's say you were in a situation where more than one enemy was in range to attack you. In this case, the zombie is on the same square as you and can attack you, and this one is 1 away, which under this circumstance is enough to be able to hit you. This zombie cannot hit you. In this case, you would be attacked once because 2 of them are in range, but that means you would need to roll at least a medium or, of course, large roll to evade. So the 2 small bases within range combine forces to create a single medium base within range. But if anything more than the equivalent of a medium base is within range to attack you, you must roll the large evade symbol. The large evade symbol will always evade no matter how many enemies are in range. However, once you have been attacked once, no other reactions are performed this turn by anything else in range. So if something was out of range, these attacked once, this would perform a reaction. So for example, if I wanted to search this A item, first I would be attacked by the enemy with the highest threat level, which in this case is the Cerberus with a 2. If an evade was not successful, the character suffers the effect of the attack. And when a player is attacked by an enemy and they are on the same square, the player can then push that enemy. Remember, a failed action still counts towards your action points. If you are able to avoid the attack of the enemy with the highest threat level, in this case Cerberus, you may resolve the action as normal. The rules for attacking an enemy while on the same square are a little bit different than taking other actions on the same square as an enemy. If successful, simply perform that attack. And if there are other enemies on the square of a successful attack, they do not attack back. However, if an attack on an enemy who is in the same square as the player is unsuccessful, that enemy performs a basic attack which automatically hits. There is no evading that. However, the player may still choose to push after the attack. When performing an attack against an enemy that is not in the same square as the character, all enemies that were not hit by the attack perform a move reaction, moving closer to the player according to the movement value on that enemy's enemy reference card. The zombies that will perform a move reaction after an attack are the ones on the same tile as the player and any linked tiles. We can see in this example this door is closed, so if it was the only door, these 2 tiles would not be linked. However, this door is open, so they are linked. Enemies on tiles that are more than one away of the current player will not move. However, if a zombie is in the same square as a character already, he will stay in that square with that character. And just a note, using a knife still has the same effect. So now, once a character has completed their actions, we come to the reaction phase, where the enemies now make their moves. And during the reaction phase, the ones who will react are the enemies on the same tile as the current player and any linked tiles. During an enemy's reaction phase, they will react in order of threat level. So we can see in this example, the Crimson Head would perform a reaction first as it has the highest threat value. If the Crimson Head is able to attack, he will be the one to attack this round. If not, he will move, and it will move on to the Cerberus. If the Cerberus is able to attack, were the Crimson Head not able to, the Cerberus will attack. If not, he will move, and so forth down the line. If there were more than one enemy with the same threat level, players choose which order to do that in. If a character is in the enemy's line of sight and attack range, let's say this symbol was in play, so the character was in a range of 3, then that enemy would attack. If they were unable to attack because they did not have line of sight in this example, they would instead move. And wherever possible, an enemy stops in the same square as the character. So if Cerberus was under normal conditions, he would be unable to attack, so he would move. And the zombie would then move after that. However, if the Cerberus started the reaction phase in the same square as the character, the Cerberus would attack. And anything else within range of attacking the character would add its base size value to what you would need to roll to evade. And if unsuccessful, then the attack hits, and you may choose to push the currently attacking enemy. Once one attack has been performed this turn, no other attacks are performed this turn. So for example, on the reaction phase, the Cerberus would go first, and he is able to attack. You would need to roll a medium evade die. Let's say that the roll was not successful, so now you push the Cerberus. The zombie is in range to attack, so he would not perform a reaction. However, this zombie is not within range to attack, so he would still move. Sometimes more than one character is in range of an enemy. In this case, the enemy chooses whoever the active character is. If a choice cannot be determined that way, the active player will still be the one to decide which choice is made. Once you've completed the reaction phase, then comes the tension phase. When doing the tension phase, simply draw the top card of the tension deck and resolve the text. We can see here that this is an all clear card, so no effects happen besides this symbol which goes into effect, allowing enemies to have a stronger attack. But of course, not all cards are all clear. Some cards have text that you must resolve right now. Some cards may have these teeth icon or even this skull and crossbones icon. This is in reference to the tension dial, which is not used during the tutorial scenario, so you may disregard it for the tutorial. If a player draws a tension card but is unable to resolve it, for example, we are not using mission cards for our tutorial scenario, discard it and draw 2 tension cards and resolve those in order. Though not in play yet, some cards will say this card remains in play for 1 round. A round is from the time the effect begins until the end of the current player's next turn. After the first scenario, if the tension deck ever runs out of cards, everyone loses. However, for the tutorial and the first scenario, if the tension deck runs out, simply shuffle the cards together and place them to form a new draw pile. If at any point during normal gameplay, a character's health goes below danger, that character becomes unconscious. That player's turn immediately ends, their figure remains on the board, and their turn is continuously skipped until they can possibly be revived. An unconscious character can still trade with a conscious character who is on the same square or one away from them. And although they still occupy the same space, enemies and bosses now ignore them. And it is to your benefit to revive any unconscious characters because otherwise you cannot finish the scenario successfully. But note that if, during the tutorial, if any player becomes unconscious at any time, all players automatically lose the tutorial. And remember, the goal of the scenario is to have each character reach the exit and use an action point to exit. Once all characters have completed this objective, you win. And that's all you need to know to get started playing the tutorial for Resident Evil the board game. Enjoy the process of discovering what's new with Resident Evil the board game as you progress through the campaign. Thank you for joining me as I learned Resident Evil the board game. Have fun!